Barry Sanders slipped through defenders like smoke, the most elusive runner football has ever seen. But at 56, Sanders finally admits there were players who humbled him in ways no highlight reel could hide. In this story, the untouchable legend names the toughest opponents he ever faced and the shocking truth about the defenders who managed to rattle the real deal of the NFL. When Barry Sanders arrived in the National Football League in 1989, he immediately rewrote the way the game looked. He wasn't the biggest player, standing at 5 feet 8 inches and weighing around 200 pounds. Yet he made defenders miss in ways that no one had ever seen before. His agility, his ability to cut sharply without losing speed, and his instinct for seeing holes where none seemed to exist set him apart from every other back in the league. Sanders didn't simply run past people. He left them grasping at air, spinning in circles, and wondering what had just happened. It was this ability that earned him recognition as the #1 most elusive runner in the National Football League Network's 2007 rankings, a title that has remained closely linked to his name ever since. What made Sanders unique was the combination of vision and creativity he brought to the field. Most running backs followed the design of a play, hitting the gap created by the offensive line. However, Sanders turned broken plays into highlights. He had a sense of balance and timing that allowed him to stop on a dime, reverse direction, and find openings no one else could see. Defenders would converge on him thinking the play was over, only to watch him emerge from the chaos and sprint downfield. In many ways, he made the unpredictable look effortless. This was not only exciting for fans, but also revolutionary for future generations of players who studied his moves carefully. Drafted 3rd overall in the 1989 National Football League Draft, Sanders entered the league with expectations, but no one could have predicted the immediate impact he would have. In his rookie season, he rushed for 1,470 yards, earning the Offensive Rookie of the Year honors. From the very beginning, he showed that his style of running was dominance. Defenders struggled with his speed, and by the end of that first season, the league knew that something new had arrived. Over the course of his 10-year career, Sanders built numbers that remain astonishing today. He rushed for 15,269 yards, ranking 4th all-time in the National Football League history. He scored 99 rushing touchdowns and maintained an average of 5.0 yards per carry, a remarkable statistic considering the consistency it requires across so many seasons. Beyond his rushing success, he contributed as a receiver as well, and his versatility meant that he was always a threat, no matter the situation on the field. Sanders was more than a runner, he was the centerpiece of Detroit's offense, the player who gave fans a reason to believe every match day. Sanders was selected to the Pro Bowl in each of his 10 seasons, proving his consistency year after year. He was named first-team All-Pro 6 times, leading the league in rushing yards 4 different seasons. In 1997, he delivered one of the most memorable performances in National Football League history, rushing for over 2,000 yards in a single-season and earning NFL MVP honors. That same year, he was also named Offensive Player of the Year, an award he had won once before in 1994. In 2004, his place among the legends of the game was secured with his induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, an award that showed just how impactful his career was. But behind the dazzling moves and historic numbers, there was also a story of battles and challenges. Sanders' career was not only defined by what happened on the field, but also by the struggles he faced away from the spotlight. Sanders dealt with difficult decisions and moments of controversy that shaped his story as much as the highlights did. He seemed untouchable in the open field, but his life after football proved to be far more complex. One of the most surprising chapters came in 1999, when Sanders announced his retirement at the age of 31. At the time, he was less than 1,500 yards away from breaking Walter Payton's all-time rushing record, a milestone that many assumed he would eventually own. The announcement shocked the football world. Fans and analysts were left searching for answers, especially because Sanders was still performing at an elite level and had shown no signs of slowing down. In his own explanation, Sanders made it clear that he no longer felt the drive to keep playing. He cited personal burnout, the emotional toll of carrying a struggling Detroit Lions franchise, and the lack of realistic championship prospects. For years, he had shouldered the responsibility of being the face of the team, But with little hope of postseason success, the joy of competition faded. The suddenness of his departure created one of the biggest controversies in the history of the National Football League. The Lions immediately demanded that Sanders repay a share of his signing bonus, arguing that he had retired before fulfilling the terms of his contract. The legal battle became public and contentious, forcing Sanders into a spotlight he never sought. Known for being soft-spoken and private, he was now caught in a very public financial dispute with the team he had carried for a decade. Many fans sympathized with him, believing he had given the franchise everything he had, while others criticized the decision as selfish, pointing out how close he was to becoming the National Football League's all-time rushing leader. Sanders valued personal peace more than records, and this episode marked a turning point in how people viewed not only his career, but also his relationship with the game itself. Years later, in 2024, Sanders faced a health crisis that reminded fans how human even their greatest heroes are. During Father's Day weekend, he suffered a heart attack, an event that startled the sports world. Sanders had always been seen as the picture of health, the athlete who relied on conditioning and agility rather than brute force. And so, news of his heart attack brought shock, but Sanders himself chose to confront the moment with openness. In a documentary titled The Making of a Heart Attack, he shared the details of what happened and how it changed his perspective on life. The program was not only a personal account, but also a message to others about the importance of cardiovascular awareness. Sanders encouraged people to take preventative health measures seriously, emphasizing diet, exercise, and regular checkups. Beyond physical health, he also spoke about mental health, particularly the challenges athletes face after their careers end. Sanders' identity was tied so closely to football, and adjusting to life away from the game came with its own struggles. The combination of personal reflection and advocacy in the documentary revealed a side of him that fans had rarely seen, a man willing to use his own challenges as a way to help others. But the challenges didn't stop there, because financial challenges added another layer to his post-football life. During his playing days, Sanders earned close to $30 million, a significant figure for the era. Yet by 2025, his net worth was estimated at around $8 million. Several factors contributed to the difference. His early retirement meant walking away from years of potential earnings, both in salary and endorsements. The repayment of part of his signing bonus also took a financial toll. Unlike many players, Sanders was never one to chase endorsements aggressively or to live a lavish lifestyle, but the business side of football still found a way to leave its mark. Barry Sanders' struggles off the field were real, but on the field, his greatest challenge was a single opponent who humbled him in a way no setback ever could. Among all the fierce competitors he faced in his career, one name consistently stands out when Barry Sanders talks about the toughest players he's met, and that's Lawrence Taylor of the New York Giants. In 2025, during an appearance on the Green Light podcast, Sanders admitted that lining up against Taylor was intimidating, calling him the best of the best, and explaining that playing against him was not only daunting, but also exciting. For a player as elusive and confident as Sanders, this acknowledgement speaks volumes, showing the level of respect he carries for Taylor, a defender whose reputation stretches far beyond ordinary greatness. Taylor was already a legend by the time Sanders reached his prime. Known simply as LT, he transformed the way defense was played in the National Football League. Over his career, he earned 10 Pro Bowl selections, anchored 2 Super Bowl championship teams, and in 1986 became one of the only defensive players ever to win the league's Most Valuable Player award. His style of play was impressive, relentless, and calculated, combining speed, power, and instincts in a way that left offensive coordinators scrambling for solutions. Quarterbacks feared him, linemen dreaded him, and running backs knew that avoiding him was almost impossible. And so, Sanders, who built his career on the ability to make the first tackler miss, had a hard time facing Taylor. Sanders crossed paths with Taylor in 1989 during a matchup between the Lions and the Giants. On that day, Sanders was held to only 57 yards on 12 carries, an unusually quiet performance for a player who could dominate defenses. Every time he touched the ball, it seemed like Taylor was nearby, closing off lanes, reading his movements, and forcing him into crowded spaces where his cutbacks lost their effect. It wasn't that Sanders played poorly. However, Taylor's presence and anticipation disrupted the rhythm of Detroit's offense before it could even develop. What impressed Sanders most about Taylor was his physical gifts and his mind for the game. Sanders later admitted that Taylor had a unique ability to read plays almost before they started. Where most defenders reacted, Taylor anticipated. He could diagnose blocking schemes instantly, shift into position, and close the space before Sanders could exploit it. Sanders described Taylor's speed as astonishing and his instincts as unmatched, a combination that made every carry against him a battle of wits as much as a test of athletic ability. Sanders found the match against Taylor intimidating because the margin for error was so thin, but also exciting because they forced him to elevate his own game. Facing a player like Taylor meant stepping onto the field, knowing that every yard was earned and that every highlight would come against someone capable of stopping it. It was the kind of challenge that sharpened Sanders' focus and reminded him why he loved competition in the first place. The respect went beyond statistics or single plays. It was about going head-to-head with a defender who represented the pinnacle of his craft. Taylor's impact on the league has often been described in the same way that Sanders' own impact on offense is viewed: revolutionary. Taylor changed what was possible for a linebacker, creating a model for the modern edge rusher. Sanders did the same for the running back position, redefining how elusiveness and vision could dominate. In many ways, their careers mirrored one another across opposite sides of the ball. And when they collided on the field, it was more than a matchup. It was two forces of innovation meeting in the purest form of competition. But while Taylor holds the top spot in Sanders' mind, there were other defenders across his decade in the National Football League who also left lasting impressions, players whose strength, speed, and determination tested him in ways that helped define his legacy. Across 10 seasons in the National Football League, Sanders faced defenders and teams who tested every part of his game, from his elusiveness to his patience and toughness. The matchups varied in style. Some relied on sheer strength, others on speed and discipline, but together they formed the backdrop against which Sanders' brilliance was measured. One of the first players who pushed Sanders to his limits was Christian Okoye of the Kansas City Chiefs. Known as the Nigerian Nightmare, Okoye represented the opposite of Sanders' playing style. Where Sanders was elusive, Okoye was forceful. At 6'1" and over 250 pounds, he ran with a punishing power that left defenders bruised and reluctant to meet him head-on. In 1989, Sanders' rookie year, the two were locked in a battle for the National Football League rushing title. In the end, Okoye edged Sanders by a mere 10 yards. It was a razor-thin margin that highlighted their contrasting approaches to the game. Sanders later acknowledged Okoye's dominance in the game, noting that it wasn't a bad thing to be second to him at that time. One of the most consistent challenges Barry Sanders faced came from the Chicago Bears, a defense built on toughness and tradition. Throughout his career, the battles with Chicago were some of the most physical and demanding, with linebackers like Mike Singletary and later Brian Urlacher embodying the team's reputation for discipline and power. Sanders had moments where he broke free and left the Bears grasping at air, including one memorable game where he carried the offense almost single-handedly, slipping through their front line and finding the end zone multiple times. But more often than not, every yard against Chicago felt earned, a test of patience and persistence against a defense that prided itself on preparation and grit. The Green Bay Packers were another familiar test, and every meeting carried the weight of a rivalry. Their defenses of the era were loaded with stars, including the relentless Reggie White on the line and Leroy Butler patrolling the secondary, players who helped set the standard for toughness in the 1990s National Football League. Knowing how dangerous Sanders could be, the Packers often built entire defensive game plans around stopping him, shifting schemes and crowding lanes to cut off his space. Yet even with that level of focus, Sanders repeatedly found ways to slip free, turning their careful preparation into highlight runs that reminded everyone why he was the most elusive back of his generation. The Minnesota Vikings were another defense that constantly pushed Sanders to his limits. Their front line was built on aggression and pressure, forcing him to lean on his vision and patience with every carry. At the heart of that defense was John Randle, a relentless force whose energy and unpredictability made him one of the most feared linemen of the decade. Randall had a way of disrupting plays before they even developed, testing Sanders' ability to adapt in an instant. But those kinds of challenges often brought out Sanders' finest runs, as he turned chaos into opportunity and showed why no defense could ever completely contain him. While less frequent, the Pittsburgh Steelers also left their mark on Sanders' career. Known league-wide for their discipline and physicality, the Steelers' defenses rarely gave away easy yards. Sanders himself noted their toughness, pointing out that even though the matchups were rare, the intensity was undeniable. For a runner who thrived on making defenders miss, the Steelers' consistency in pursuit and their ability to swarm the ball made them one of the few teams that could keep him in check, at least for stretches of a game. And yet, as memorable as these battles were, the years since his retirement have shown a different side of Barry Sanders that the world never saw on the field. Currently, Barry Sanders isn't just a retired football star. He's become a symbol of humility, grace, and endurance in the football community, representing not only what he accomplished on the field, but also the way he has carried himself in the years since. His connection to the game and to the city of Detroit remains strong, and in many ways, his influence feels as present now as it did when he was dazzling fans on Sunday afternoons. In 2017, Sanders officially returned to the Detroit Lions organization as a team ambassador, a role that reconnected him with the franchise he defined during his decade in the league. The position allowed him to engage directly with fans, represent the team at community events, and serve as a bridge between the franchise's storied past and its aspirations for the future. This was more than a ceremonial gesture. For Detroit, it was a chance to finally celebrate and embrace a player whose sudden retirement had once left lingering questions. Sanders used this as an opportunity to give back to the fan base that supported him throughout his career, and his presence at games, events, and charity initiatives has since reinforced his place as an enduring face of the Lions. Public appearances have also become an important part of Sanders' life in recent years. He has been a regular at National Football League honor ceremonies, alumni gatherings, and football celebrations, where he represents the values of the sport. Away from the game, he has also taken on a role as an advocate for health and wellness, using his own experiences to raise awareness. After surviving a heart attack in 2024, Sanders made it a priority to speak openly about cardiovascular health, encouraging others to prioritize screenings, exercise, and healthy lifestyles. He has also spoken about the mental challenges that athletes often face after leaving the game, especially the need for greater support and understanding. These efforts have shown that even off the field, Sanders continues to make an impact by inspiring others through honesty and example. Sanders has also remained closely tied to the Lions' image through promotional campaigns and documentaries about his career and the franchise's history. Of course, his presence brings some form of authenticity, reminding fans of the glory he once brought to Detroit, even in years when championships proved elusive. In 2021, the Lions unveiled a life-sized bronze statue of Sanders outside Ford Field, a permanent tribute to his contributions and a symbol for generations of fans to admire. The statue captures the artistry and spirit that defined Sanders' style, ensuring that his legacy lives not only in highlight reels, but in the very fabric of Detroit's identity. Culturally, Sanders' National Football League influence stretches far beyond football. The Entertainment and Sports Programming Network ranked him among the top 100 North American athletes of the 20th century, a recognition that placed him alongside icons from every sport. His highlights remain staples of sports broadcasts. His name continues to appear in debates over the greatest running back in history, and his humility off the field has made him a respected figure well beyond the game. Sanders' career may have ended earlier than expected, but his impact has endured in a way that few athletes achieve. He remains a part of Detroit, a part of the National Football League, and a part of sports culture at large. When you think of Barry Sanders, what game comes to mind first? Drop your answers in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more updates.